Hello everybody, this is Cojo Sao, and today I'm going to be doing my Arkham City any percent tutorial for the any percent speedrun. This is assuming that you are playing on the PC version of the game. If you're playing on the console version, you're going to have to modify a lot of these tricks and sequence breaks, because they won't all work the exact same way. But I'm going to be showing you how to set up and then run the PC version of the game. PC version is the fastest version of the game. We play on the latest version, which is the Steam version, so if you buy this game on Steam, you should be good to go. Also, if you buy on Steam, there's no DLC separated or anything like that, so there's only one version of the game on Steam, and that really helps to simplify things, especially considering some other game communities have different versions, but whatever. We're not talking about them, we're talking about Batman. So, to get started, this is coming off, I'm assuming that you have freshly installed the game. You have, or perhaps you have played through it, and you're interested in running it. So, on Steam, I went ahead and just hit play and configure PC settings. So we've loaded up this, this little launcher. We can go ahead and click settings, and we've got some display settings that I do want to go over, because this is really, some of these are pretty important. So first of all, full screen resolution. If you're streaming the game or doing some window capture run, I would recommend that you do not use full screen and that you use a resolution smaller than your monitor resolution. The reason is you can't do borderless windowed mode on this game very well. Even using like borderless gaming or other programs like that, they just don't work well at all. So what I do is I have the game set to windowed mode, set full screen to no, and then I have resolution. This is basically the highest 16:9 resolution that I can do. This is very important. VSync you're going to need to turn off. If you turn this on, the game, it's not quite proper VSync. It just limits your frame rate to 60 frames per second. Whereas the default frame rate limit is 62 without VSync enabled. There are frame-specific tricks that we do in the run, so make sure that this is turned off, set to no. Anti-aliasing, I have set disabled. If you have a powerful enough PC, you can probably get away with it. Also, I just realized that this is, like, weirdly cropped. Why is this doing this? Okay, now you guys can see it. I mean, you weren't really missing much. Anti-aliasing I have set to disabled, but that's more personal. Stereoscopic 3D, hopefully I don't need to tell you to turn that off. DirectX 11 features, make sure that these are turned off. DirectX 11 is implemented super poorly in this game, so that needs to be set to off, and then tessellation will be set to off as well. The rest of these, with the exception of physics, you can basically set to whatever you'd like. My PC is powerful enough to where I can run at very high settings. I do have motion blur turned off because it looks bad and it makes stream, video compression just destroys the game, especially if you're streaming at a lower bitrate. So I would definitely recommend you turn that one off, regardless of what your other settings are. But then at the bottom, we have hardware accelerated PhysX, which is kind of like DirectX 11, not implemented in the best way. So I would recommend, even if you've got a good NVIDIA card, I would recommend you turn that off. Controls, we're actually not going to be mapping any controls through here unless you yourself would like to remap controls. There are two important remaps that we'll be doing, but those are mouse wheel remaps, and so we'll be doing those in the INI files instead of in this menu. But if you, for example, want to run forward with a different button or something, then by all means remap that here. Go ahead and do that first before doing anything else in the setup, because we're going to be setting some files to read only, which will make the launcher very unhappy if you decide to come back to it. So we're going to hit OK. Real quick, I'm going to hit play, which is going to make sure that those INI files are all sort of initialized correctly. We'll go ahead and just quit out of that real quick, and also I will turn my volume down because that was very loud. Okay, So now we are going to go to My Documents, wherever this is on your computer. Go to your Documents folder, and if you just type in WB, it will pop down to WB Games and all your Arkham games, with the exception of Arkham Asylum. Put their, or some initialization files in here. So we're going to go to Arkham City Game of the Year, BM Game, Config, and we've got all these INI files set up. So to start off, we're going to go to BM Engine. There are a few things that you're going to want to check. First off, language, you are going to want to set to ESN, which is going to change the language of the game to, whoops, can't really see the whole thing. That's going to change the language of the game to Spanish, which is slightly faster than English. So I would recommend you do that. I'm also going to, real quick, just Control F, make sure there's no other places where we need to change the language, and it doesn't look like there is, so that's good. Go ahead and hit Control F or your Find option and type in Max Smooth, and it'll pop down to Max Smooth frame rate. Hey, Chicken Nuggets. So you want to make sure that this is set to 62 in case you set this to something else or whatever. 62 is the default setting. You need to make sure that that is correct. There's also one more thing you can do optionally, which is if you're playing in windowed mode. By default, what the game does is if you Alt-Tab out of the game when it's in windowed mode to like do something else when, you know, on a browser or whatever, the game will pause itself, which is kind of irritating. So if you type in focus, it's called, here it is, pause on loss of focus, and we can go ahead and just type in false, and then yeah, there's no other instance of that. So go ahead and set that to false, and that will make sure that when you load up the game, as long as you're not watching a pre-rendered cutscene, you can Alt-Tab out of the game, and it'll work just fine. Then what you're going to want to do after that is BM Engine INI, right-click, click Properties, and then click Read Only, and hit OK. And that's going to prevent the game from making any adjustments to this INI file when you boot it up or when you go into the launcher, etc., etc. We don't need to do anything in BM Game, I don't think, right? Yeah. Don't adjust that. Now what we're going to do, and I will make a link to this in the description, is there is a Arkham City guide. So let me go to the speedrun.com page for Arkham City, and we go to guides, and I'll put a link in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, and I guess I'll post it in the Twitch chat as well. There are 2 guides, and this one is going to be for mouse wheel binds. So assuming that your mouse has a mouse wheel, then you can bind certain buttons to the mouse wheel to speed things up in the game. The 2 buttons that we're going to be binding are the counter button and the skip dialogue button. But we're going to be binding the Xbox B button to the skip dialogue. So what we're going to do is open up user input, go to the bottom, and from this guide, I am copying this entire thing. It starts with this dot bindings, and then it ends with a ready gadget button there. Mouse scroll up is going to, this is going to be our counter button, and that's for the Ra's al Ghul fight, because you have to do, like, 20 counters all at once, and so you can just flick your mouse wheel up, and that's great. For skipping the dialogue, we are going to do this binding and post that right below it. So it starts with the dot bindings, mouse scroll down, and it ends with cancel Batarang camera. Make sure that parentheses is there. Then we'll go ahead and save this, and do the same thing, right-click and click Read Only for that. I would recommend you set both these files to read only, regardless of loss of focus or anything like that, just to ensure that Steam or the game don't try and mess with any of those language settings or anything like that. Alright, so let me pop this, disappear that for real quick, 1 second. Okay. One last thing is you're going to go to wherever the game is installed for you. For most people, this is going to be in your program files. So it's going to be C program files, x86 Steam. Mine's in D program files x86 Steam. You're going to go to Steam apps, common, and then the game will be installed right here. I actually have mine installed in a different location, but unless you guys have picked a specific location for where you installed the game, this is where it'll be. I'm going to minimize this real quick and go to my actual location because I have it installed on my my SSD. So hopefully that's not too confusing. So I'm in that common directory. We can do Batman Arkham City Game of the Year Edition. BM game config. You're going to see a lot of these INI files again. We want to go into this little PC folder, and we're going to go into PC game. So PC game is the location where these lines, and you can see some of them are already changed. Normally it looks like this. So these lines basically tell the Game of the Year edition which DLC files are available. Now, if you're playing any % on PC, then you need to make sure that if you are playing regular any % without Catwoman, that you have Catwoman disabled, and if you're playing any % with Catwoman, then you have Catwoman enabled. Now, I'm assuming that if you're here to learn the run, that you want to learn the run without Catwoman, which is what most people play, especially if you're playing on PC. All you need to do is either comment these lines out, or delete them entirely, or I just modify them. I delete like the first plus sign, doesn't really matter. Catwoman, and then this one, CWAS. Just go ahead and like adjust those lines so that basically the game will not read those, and it will not load those two DLCs when we load the game. So it's essentially like uninstalling those DLCs. The reason we do this is because Catwoman DLC is, when the game first came out, was actually day 1 DLC back in the day when you, if you bought a game brand new, you got a little extra DLC added onto the game, but if you bought the game used or you just never installed that, then you didn't have those extra missions. The way that this game handles it is those extra missions are tacked on, so you are forced to play them in order to complete the story, and because we consider them to be additional DLCs, our default run category does not include those. So, we have now done all of our setup. This is the time if you want to play with a controller, you would plug one in. There's another one you have to... Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right. Forgot about the other one. We will edit this out. PC game. Yes, later on. So you scroll down to our game info. You'll find those same 2 lines. Do the same thing, delete the plus sign, or just delete the line entirely, or whatever, comment it out, doesn't matter. And then, and now the game will not include those into the main game. Whew. So, like I said, this is the time when, if you're playing with a controller, make sure that is plugged in. And we can load up Arkham City. So, I'll go ahead and load up the game. There we go. So, we notice a couple things. I have my Steam frame rate on, so we can see the game is hovering at about 62 FPS, which is good. You also see that the game is in Spanish, as evidenced by the Spanish words. And now, I'm going to go ahead and... we can go ahead and delete our save file. If you don't know Spanish, you press triangle or Y or backspace on the keyboard. Click yes. Delete. Hit continue. Load the game in Spanish. Easy difficulty is fácil, and then we can begin the game. So if you deleted those DLC files correctly, you'll be greeted with a white screen here. And after this white screen is when you would start your timer.
Debería darle las gracias. Capturar a Bruce Wayne es mucho más fácil que a Batman.
There's not really much interesting to talk about in this tutorial part, so I'm actually going to skip ahead through this, and we will... I'm going to use a, what's it called? a save file loader to just load a save file after we get the Batsuit on, because nothing special happens.
Tengo que encontrar a Catwoman enseguida.
Okay, so we've just, we've just come up here, and this is a part where I might explain a couple things, gliding around the city. So I use mouse and keyboard to glide around the city, even though I play most of the game with a controller. The reason is because when they ported this game to PC, the way that they mapped the gliding controls, normally, if you're gliding with a controller, you do it with the analog stick, and Batman has a sort of fixed turn speed. The way they did it, they made it so that when you're gliding, Batman's gliding, the angle that he's gliding tries to match wherever the mouse is facing, instead of trying to make you press buttons and stuff. But in order to cope for this, they increased his turning speed when you're using mouse and keyboard. So when you're gliding around the city, it is mostly advantageous to use mouse and keyboard to have just that little extra precision. Before we get grapple boosts, you can also sort of Spider-Man around by canceling your grapples like that. And we'll start off by heading to the courthouse. So on easy difficulty, combat mostly consists of, let me go ahead and just skip this real quick. Combat, you're going to start off, and there are a couple ways you can take out guys real quick, which is using beatdowns, ground pound takedowns, and combo batarangs. It's kind of hard to describe how to do this without you just doing it and getting a feel for what you should be doing. You want to start this fight over here, and I do a running kick, stun, and a beatdown like that. And unfortunately, I got hit by the guy. You don't want that guy to be shooting you from the top there. He's still shooting at me. That's really unfortunate. And once you get enough of these guys down, you can just kind of knock them all down. And that was easy.
Tengo que localizar por dónde entró la bala y dónde impactó.
Hello to everybody that has just come in and is watching. Chat interaction is probably going to be a minimum since I'm going to be explaining things. Like I said earlier, I'll be uploading this to YouTube, and you can also watch the VOD on Twitch, so I won't be really repeating myself. So when we're going to the church, I come up here, and basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be trying to do a glide skip to skip this little fight outside the church. It's kind of difficult, and it's not really a big deal if you mess it up. But basically you want to be gliding and getting a lot of speed, and you're going to try and fly past the guys that are standing in front of the door. So I grapple to the left side of this water tower, cancel that once you get to the top, we'll do a glide boost, and then we kind of glide straight down like this, getting some height. Unfortunately, I was just a little bit too slow, so we have to take these guys out. This guy is seeming to not... That was weird. He was like totally still. Regardless of what happens, just, you know, take those guys out if you need to. I'm going to come in here, and we'll do this, this part. So for Harley Quinn here, you want to sort of manipulate her so that she is standing about on this corner of this rug by the time that she leaves the room, so that she'll leave the room more quickly. So she'll follow you for a step right here. And do your best, I would do your best to sort of follow my movements here. So she'll follow you this way. I stand about right here so that she takes like a step or two to the left, and then we'll drag her down to this corner. So that is pretty great manipulation. So once she finishes this, you'll see she spins around and immediately goes to the door. If she finishes her dialogue and she's still like over here, then she has to manually walk herself over there. So that just is a little thing that can save time. For these guys, go ahead and throw your smoke bomb, but do not grapple. Make sure this entire time you do not press the grapple button. These two guys will be remaining. Flip over this guy's head, and then flip back, and then crouch. These guys will all both face that way, so you can just double take down them. Very silly, but it's the fastest way to do that. Hop in here, and then I'm going to do a sort of grapple across the room like this, and then you can just cancel it. Get behind this guy. Now I do want to have enough experience by the time I get to the steel mill so that I can get 2 upgrades, hopefully. If you only get 1 upgrade, it's okay, but I'm going to see if I can get 2. So I'm going to grab this trophy and cancel that. I'm using mouse here to do this glide, and so I grapple up to the gargoyle, and then as soon as he starts actually grappling up, I'm holding the glide button and I cancel it, and I look this way. So Batman glides in this direction. That's really difficult to do with the controller. Again, why I would recommend you use a keyboard and mouse for gliding. We'll go ahead and grab that one. And we'll come up here. To the left and look at the gun. And I also didn't do one thing there. You can, as soon as you see the gun, you can try and go through this little trapdoor again, and some of Batman's dialogue, one of his dialogue lines is quicker than actually waiting for him to talk about the gun. But that's, again, a very small optimization that once you're familiar with the game, you can try and remember better. Anyways, gotta avoid these bombs. So for gliding here, we want to make sure that we get the Riddler challenge to glide, I believe it's 150 meters without using the grapple boost. So what I do is I cancel, whoops, well, doesn't really matter. We'll cancel grapple here, and I do a dive bomb here, I do a dive bomb here, keeping as much height as possible. I do a dive bomb here. You can also go to the left of these if you're still not quite good with the gliding. And then once I get about right here, I glide down and then kind of glide through these balloons. So we got the 150 meter challenge, and we also hit those balloons for experience. And now we're going to do the AR gliding challenge for experience, as well as for the actual grapple boost. So in this second to last ring, do a dive bomb, swing back up this way, and grapple here. You should have enough time to throw a Batarang at those balloons or at the camera. And then we'll glide off this way, dive bomb through these guys, and then once you are about to hit the bottom one, cancel your dive bomb, swing back up that way. And once you grapple up here, you can throw a Batarang at that camera, get some more experience without wasting too much time. And then we'll do the final augmented reality glide challenge. You can sort of grapple here. Make sure you don't cancel that grapple too late, though. You have to be gliding by the time that you hit that ring. Otherwise, the game will sort of phase you right through it. It's really irritating. So we have finished the augmented reality glides, and now we are going to go grab the upgrade.
No, Alfred. Creo que
This
necesito
is
el ancla turbo.
kind of the fastest way to go about doing it.
Que aún no está preparado para su uso en el campo. Todavía está en fase de prototipos.
Me he entrenado bastante. Estoy preparado.
So this really helps to speed up movement throughout the city and lets you do some out of bounds and other things a little bit easier because you can grapple boost to get more height. So we're going to be using that to get around the city a lot now. Now I'm going to talk about the lava skip, which is a glide that you can do that is a little bit difficult, and it's not really a big deal if you're not able to do it. It doesn't save that much time. But I'll show you how to do it anyways. So, go ahead and mash to open this up. And you do have to wait here for these flames to disappear. If you're going to do the lava skip, you need to hang down here by crouching and pressing your run button. You can just drop down and do this part normally, or you can shimmy as far to the left as possible. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down onto this railing, and as I'm falling, I'm going to press A for maybe like half a second, so that I'm not holding it when I land. So like just enough like that. So now I'm on this railing, very precariously perched. If you hold that left button for too long, you will fall into the lava and die and lose a lot of time. Then I'm going to hold down the run button, jump at this wall here, bounce off, look this way, dive bomb, and aim for this railing to get across. Now, like I said, doing that the normal way is really not that slow, so if you are having trouble with that, don't feel bad for having to do that normally. I think this last trophy will give us enough experience to get 2 upgrades. Yes, it did. So, if you've only got 1 upgrade here, you're going to have to modify your upgrade path slightly. Only loses a little bit of time. We'll go over to combat. So we've got critical strikes here, and then this is the Bat Swarm combo, and then this one is multi-ground. Now, since I've got 2 upgrades, I'm going to get the Bat Swarm, and then I'm going to get multi-ground. If you only have 1 upgrade, you'll want to get critical strikes first, and then with your next 2 upgrades, you get these 2. Because there is a big fight coming up after this little area, and basically we're going to be trying to do that fight as fast as possible. You'll see the multi-ground is sort of the de facto way to finish fights real fast, because you can knock everybody down and take them all out in 1 hit once you have a combo going. So, I'm going to pop out here, run at this guy, throw a Batarang, punch, and then we're going to do this until I get to 7, and then when I hit 7, I throw 3 Batarangs to get to 8. Whoops, don't get hit there. So, that's kind of how you want to maximize the number of guys that are on the ground once you throw your multi-ground combat move.
Alfred,
We'll skip that. So for these guys here, you kind of stand right here, throw Batarangs, and then dive through the window, and you'll kind of go past these guys. They'll look at you for a second, but because you're behind this railing, they won't be able to see you. Then you want to get behind them and do a double takedown, and that skips that whole, like, you know, like grapple these gargoyles thing that the game wants you to do. You are also going to want to pop this window open for later on to skip a, what's it called? A tutorial later on. But for now, we're going to do this room. So we get up to this guy. We're going to do a takedown on him. We're going to knock this guy down with 3 batarangs. And then we're going to immediately pull these 2 guys. Make sure that this guy gets pulled down. Sometimes he doesn't, as you can see. And then make sure this guy's knocked down. I'm going to grapple over here and then cancel it. So he ends up like this. And then we can do a smoke pellet in here and take out these guys. Whoops, that guy should have been knocked down. Oh, there's another guy. Looks like I messed up and somebody didn't get taken down. So we'll just finish that up. And now we'll save her to get the REC gun, the rec gun, remote electrical charge, whatever you'd like to call it, which is the most broken gadget in the game and the one that we're going to be abusing for most of our glitches. But before we do that, this is the tutorial that we want to skip with these guys, so we can put down an explosive gel here, climb up. Once we're inside the vent, detonate the explosive gel, and then we can fall down, and there's like a slowdown that won't happen. Alright. For this part, what we're going to want to do is we're going to hit this with a quickfire, and then we'll do the push away attack, and then hit it with one more quickfire, and that's going to yank this thing open so we can progress. But we're not going to grapple up and do it normally, because we can actually skip this fight by using the animation cancels, or I guess animation loophole, with the rec gun. So when you pull out the rec gun and you aim it, there's this sort of wind-up where, like, he puts the 2 pieces together. That animation can be overlapped with other things. If you shoot like this, while he's doing that, you can overlap this with other things. For example, with pulling out a different gadget. So, let's go back to this gun. And to do this trick, you're going to hit aim, shoot, and I do switch to explosive gel on the left side of the controller. Or I guess that would be 3 by default on keyboard. I don't remember correctly, but you're going to want to do aim, shoot, and switch gadget like this. If you've done it correctly, Batman will pull out the gel, and now I can't move until you do a couple things. So one more time. Actually, let me pull up my... Here it is. I had forgotten that was not pulled up yet. So we're going to do aim, shoot, fire like that. Whoops, I didn't hit to the shoot button. Like that. Once you do it correctly, you can see I can't move until I throw a batarang. And now I can move. Now the reason for doing this is now, whenever I'm in a different animation, I can actually hold aim and pull out my rec gun, and it will return me to the standing animation either temporarily or permanently. So, for example, let's see, what's a good... I guess you can kind of see it if I stand on top of this thing. And if I pull out this, you can see he kind of tries to stand up. That's not a very good example. So, we'll do the next best example. We'll hang up here. And normally the game won't let me get down until I trigger this fight. But I can hold down aim and press the remote electrical charge button. And Batman sort of falls down like that. So you can probably see where this is going. While I'm falling, you can still press your A button, your run button, whatever that is, spacebar, A, X. You can still press that to climb up and into that room. But the timing is specific. You don't want to do it too early, but you don't also want to hit the ground, otherwise you have to do the trick again. So you want to do it about once Batman passes this thing here, the bottom of this overhang. It's about right now. And you can see Batman climbs up, does not trigger the fight, and if Harley's standing here, kind of broken, waiting for you to climb the area properly. And we're up here. If you walk forward a little bit, trigger this cutscene, we can skip right past that. And now we've got our good old unskippable cutscene to play through. and I will return when this is over. Alrighty. So for this next gliding part, you want to kind of follow what I do. These grapple points are pretty consistent, never change. I hold left on that one. I hold forward on this one. Basically, I'm trying to get another one of those gliding challenges by the time I end up at the GCPD. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'll be uploading this to YouTube afterwards, so that if you missed anything, you can still watch. So right now, I should get that challenge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickfire wreck at this guy. He's going to scare those other guys. We're going to shoot up there and then slide through. And that's going to give another Riddler challenge to make sure we get enough experience. These guys will be utterly confused where Batman could have gone. They have no idea. I didn't show this earlier, but for these little things, if you're playing on PC, you can use mouse to, you know, instead of doing this slow, like, navigation towards them, it's way better to use the mouse and keyboard to hone right in on those frequencies. Now, I'm going to be showing you the consistent way to do this room, not the fast, fiendrous way. Consistent way is to run up like this, crouch, throw a Batarang after waiting a second, throw a Batarang at this guy, knock this guy down, run over, knock this guy down, and then these three guys should all be lined up together for you to do a nice little smoke pellet right at their feet, slide them all to knock them down, and start punching. It's also good to end this final guy in this area because there is an animation where Batman slams him up against a wall, but there's no walls to do that in that area, so you always get that fast animation. So now Alfred's gonna call you and tell you that you're doing a good job, and that he's very proud of you, and then let you download the codes. Alright. So now we are going to be talking about zipping. It's about time. So get out of here. If you're not confident with zipping, you don't have to do this one. You'll have to learn zips eventually. This one just saves some time gliding across the map. But it's a good time as any to talk about how to actually zip. So there are two methods of zipping. One of them is going to save you time later on with the trick later on in the run, and so but it's a little bit harder to execute. And then the other method of zipping is really easy. So you're going to want to get into corner cover. For the fast method, you can use a Batarang, or you can do it with Batclaw as well if you want to make it a little bit easier. Basically, you want to hold down aim, and then buffer another aim input, and while you're buffering that, but before Batman actually executes it, you're going to press circle or B, whatever your button is, to get out of corner cover. So it looks like this. I'm going to do it with the Batarang first, so I'm going to aim and watch my inputs specifically, and then hold down aim afterwards. So it's so if we do from aiming, actually we're gonna do it from aim. So I'm aiming right now. Aim, cancel, aim. And you can see Batman he puts away the Batarang for a second, and he shifts out of corner cover state. At this point, I'm actually in corner cover, but I'm not attached to the corner. What this game does is whenever you use a gadget, if you're on a gargoyle or if you're in corner cover, in order to prevent you from drifting, after you throw a gadget, the game sort of says, okay, go back to the corner, and it uses those coordinates. But if you're not attached to a corner, the game doesn't know what coordinates to send you towards, so it sends you flying at incredibly high speeds to the origin point of the map. In the overworld, the origin point is... oh, thank you for that. What is happening? The origin point of the map is somewhere over here. A couple miles below the ground. But it doesn't really matter because corner cover will not actually move you vertically unless you hit some weird geometry. It will just move you horizontally. So we're going to go horizontally towards this area, but we're actually going to end up somewhere here, and then we're going to be able to grapple back in bounds. So you're going to do that, and then we're going to hit quick fire wreck. It's going to do this. You're going to want to immediately look up, start mashing grapple, and then you're going to want to grapple up this one. If you don't get that grapple point, you will fall forever and you'll have to restart and reload the game. Now I'm going to go back there because that's the hard way to do a zip, but it saves you time later on with a cutscene skip after the Mr. Freeze fight. I'll talk about that later, of course, since we're not there yet. But if you're starting to learn the speedrun and you just want to be able to zip without, you know, messing anything up, and actually, like, you know, complete some runs, there's another way to do a zip, which was the original way discovered, and it's way simpler. You throw a remote Batarang and catch it. Oh no, it works. I guess I just did something weird. Anyways, so grapple up here. The movement, we're still going to the museum, so we'll just keep going this way. These grapple points are pretty much the best ones that you can do. Now, I do have one more upgrade, so I will go ahead and buy critical strikes. If you don't have critical strikes by this point, not a big deal. You just have to do this fight slightly differently. Whoops, there's one guy. Come on, knock him out. And we will go inside, so. If you run forward at these guys, there's a tutorial that won't trigger, so just make sure you're running forward at them and you can take them down kind of like that. Pop through this window and try and hack this thing, and it turns out that there's some jammers that we have to take out. And those will now appear. They don't exist in the overworld until you actually try and hack that box and find out that you can't. So this is all required. The first one is on the roof of the museum up here, so we'll line up this way. I'm going to do this fight. This is the fastest way to do this. Get your 3 critical strikes here, Batarang, and hit. That last guy sometimes will pop back up, so we'll just Batarang him, and we'll knock them down. Now, I am going to talk about rec interrupts here, because rec interrupting is something that you will need to do at some point. So you can use the rec gun not only to switch to interrupt animations and force Batman to remain standing, but you can also interrupt things where you have to press the A button or the X button or whatever your button is to do things like go through doors. So you can let's see if I can do it as I'm talking about it. Actually, it's not going to let me go through this door again. That's right, because I'm doing this mission. So that program in the corner is called X Input Viewer. As far as I'm aware, I can't find it online anymore. I think the author took the download links down, but I still have a copy of it. I can re-upload it and share it if you guys are interested. Anyways, I'll show you with these things. What you're going to want to do, and the timing for this is specific. The best way to practice this is to do it on a door. Well, on a door that actually will open for you, not like that door down there. And basically you're going to aim while walking forward, because that makes it way easier. Aim, shoot, and press the button to whatever it is. It doesn't do anything for climbing. But if you do it properly, It only works with a 360 controller? No, you can do this with any form of input. So, left trigger, right trigger, and A button on an Xbox controller. I use a PS4 controller, mapped to a 360 controller. What?
Left, right, baby.
So, we're gonna do left trigger, right trigger, and X on my PS4 controller while pressing forward, and if you get the timing down, basically, you skip that entire punch animation. So, it looks like this if you do it fast. Whoops. And saves a nice chunk of time. We're going to grapple over here. For these guys, if you're good at rec interrupting, you can do this entire thing just by rec interrupting them all after taking these guys out. I am going to show you the way to do it if you're not good at rec interrupting. Crouch up to about that line, and you can do a double takedown on those guys without them seeing you. If you can't do that rec interrupt, we're going to do this tower first, and then this tower, and then these guys will come up here. So we'll throw down a smoke bomb, and we'll do this. Now, because I'm showing you guys how to do it, I'm going to take out these guys. You do not need to take out these guys in an actual speedrun. So if you're good at your zips, we're actually going to be doing another zip. But in this time, instead of zipping from corner cover, we're actually going to be storing our corner cover and taking it somewhere else. So, the game remembers the last state that you were in when you pulled out a Batarang. It also works with a remote Batarang. So if you pull out a Batarang here, for example, and we do that like we did with the Mr. Hammer skip back in the steel mill, if you do left trigger, right trigger, switch to explosive gel, and now I'm stuck again. If we pull out our Batarang, Batman will actually enter corner cover just like he was back hiding behind that thing. And now we can do a zip like normal, just by pressing the button or whatever. That's not going to take me anywhere because, well, that's not a good place to zip from. But if you take zip right here, spin around, grapple up to the middle of this billboard, do it from up here, throw the Batarang, you should be in the middle of, or in the inside, I should say, of this building. From here, you can go ahead and, you want to glide toward this, keeping as much height as possible, glide toward this little thing right here. You can see that's gonna load this area, and you will get out of bounds like this. Now, I am gonna show you a backup method if you're not able to get that zip consistently. That's okay. If you're not able to do that zip to get back out of bounds, you can actually grapple this way, and this is how you would do it on console as well. If you're unable to find an alternate zip. And there's actually, if you glide at this wall right here, you can actually climb out of bounds. It's very strange. There's just a hole in the geometry there. You can do it from gliding, or you can, the easy way to do it, that people originally found, is if you just look at this and grapple boost off of it and don't press any buttons, just hold down the run button, you climb up here. And then from here, you can do that same glide around, except this time we are way closer to that subway area, and so we can just land on it like this. So now we're back on this subway area. Regardless of how you got here, go ahead and glide off this direction towards this, there's some ground right here. Once you get the ability to grapple, go ahead and grapple off like that. You're going to want to do 2 very good dive bombs to keep as much height as possible. I turn on detective mode about here, and then there should be a wall. I didn't have to climb the wall, instead I just did it like that. And then once you get here, you're going to want to dive bomb smack into this thing, which makes some noise. And then that's going to let you, oh, they're not going to come upstairs. sometimes they do weird things. So I'm going to improvise this room, I guess. Check out. Doesn't really matter how you do this. I would say check out the like a world record run for the most optimal way to do this. This is more about the sort of like glitches and things than about routes for individual rooms. So I'm gonna do again. If you do this, that skips that animation. Now to get out of here using out of bounds, you can go out of here the normal way, and that's that I guess is your backup if you're unable to do what I'm about to do. But we're gonna do that same zip. You can do it either way here, and then you're gonna throw a batarang, and Batman will just hit circle to get out of, or B to get out of corner cover here. And now we're outside of the map. We're out of bounds, and we need to get back over there. Those are those stairs that we were standing on before entering this area. So in order to do this, you kind of have to walk off the edge, and you want to sort of run at an angle to where Batman is going to jump and hit this like pillar here and give you something to bounce off of, like this. And then once you bounce off of it, you can do a dive bomb. You have to do 3 actually to get over here with enough height. We'll grapple up here. Now to get the rest of the map to load, let's do one of these. So I'll show you. Look this direction. There is underneath this this texture here. You want to land about right here, which I kind of walk off and I land right here. And when you do that, somewhere around here. Actually, it's kind of like you climb up like that. And then you can see that the metro station loads around you. Now we can't grapple out of it, though. If that happens to you, and you're actually doing it, just come back down here, grapple up, and try again. But the proper way to do it is to climb up, and then before the thing loads, go ahead and grapple out. Now, there is also one little thing you can do here. If you grapple boost off of this, and do a wide turn like this, you can do another one of those fight skips, where you glide at this door, and skip that fight. Again, if you mess that up, just go ahead and do the fight. We're gonna go ahead and hack this. I'm stuttering, but once we hack this, then we are going to do the Dino Skip, which skips quite a bit of the museum and is probably the hardest skip up to this point. Oops. Make sure that when you come in the room, I'll just go ahead and show you. We'll redo this. You want to glide at these guys, so that this tutorial doesn't happen and slow you down.
Todos los visitantes deberán ser registrados como parte de nuestro firme compromiso para mantenerles a salvo y proteger la inigualable colección que tenemos expuesta. Aconsejamos a todos los visitantes que...
So yeah, you glide at them like this. Take these guys down. Make sure that you have a an upgrade at this point, which I do. I have an upgrade available. We're not going to spend that just yet. Instead, we're going to talk to this guy, and then run down to this door. It's going to load up the map. We're just going to skip that. And now this part is definitely one of the more difficult skips. Like I said, it sort of combines everything that we know up to this point, which is that we're going to be doing Wreck Interrupt on this door. We're going to be zipping from up here, and then we are going to do a chain zip to get back in bounds. The trick with Dino Zip, though, is that we have to do this all blind. We are not going to be able to see any of the geometry of the level that's loading around us. So basically, we'll use a remote batarang here, rec interrupt on this door. And when you turn around, when you rec interrupt a door in interior like this, it switches the loaded area. So now this next area you can see is loaded. The geometry of this area is still loaded, so like there's stairs in front of me, and like I'm walking up those stairs now, and so I can walk down those stairs too. If we go ahead and switch the loading back, see, these are those stairs. And what we're basically going to want to do when we're doing the blind version of this is I roll up the stairs, I look up, sort of mash the grapple button, so we grapple all the way up to this thing. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, dive, what's it called? Dive rolls like that. And that's going to land you up here, and that's where we're going to be doing our zip from. So, first, grab our storage here. Rec interrupt here. Mash our grapple button. Got the high grapple. 1, 2, 3. And from here, we can go ahead and do our zip. So we've done our rec interrupt. We are holding explosive gel. I can't move. Hold down aim when you do this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press remote control Batarang. I'm going to throw a quick fire Batarang and immediately start gliding. And what that'll do is it'll put you somewhere around here. Once you're here, you're going to want to land on this little square box part of the level. There's some guys down there. Doesn't really matter. You land here. And then we're going to do the same exact thing on that part. And now we are actually back in bounds. Now, it's kind of hard to explain where we are because I haven't actually gotten here at all yet. But we are in, if you're familiar with the museum, we're in the big room with the pool of water where there may or may not be a shark that will try and kill you when you have to raft across it. We're at the side. This door leads you into the Predator room, and this door over there leads you to where Mr. Freeze is being held captive. So what we're going to do is we're kind of come back, line up with this door, and you kind of have to do a jump there in order to jump through some, little gap or whatever. Once you do that jump, we're back in this hallway, so we'll turn, you need to go to the right a little bit, like that. And then we're going to want to run, and eventually Batman will run and start gliding. Do one dive bomb here. We're actually underneath the ice in the water right now. Sort of mash that grapple button. And eventually we will climb back up here. Run up to this door. And open it. Now, once we open this door, unfortunately Batman will fall and things will be not loaded properly anywhere. So we have to go ahead and do a checkpoint restart. Make sure that you don't exit to the main menu there, otherwise your run is dead. You will not be able to load your save game at all. You need to do a checkpoint restart with this button. And so now we have successfully made it into the room where Mr. Freeze is being held. If you're having trouble with this skip, you can do this part of the museum up to this point normally. You have to do the long gladiator fight as well as some rafting navigation. There's also a different version of Dino Zip that I think is actually slightly harder than this one once you practice it enough, which will not get you as far. It doesn't skip as many rooms, but it will still allow you to skip some of it. But I think this is the fastest way to do this area, and with a bit of practice, you can definitely get it down. Again, if you want to just jump into doing runs, then you can do the museum normally up to this point, and everything will still be fine. I've debated showing you how to do the Sigil Skip here, where you teleport the gel onto the wall. I'm not going to spend the time explaining it. For a beginner, it saves such a minimal amount of time that I don't think it's worthy. of the time that I would take to explain how the trick works. Whoops. I want to take these guys out. It's just a hard trick with very specific timing that is hard to put into words. Whoops, don't throw that. So we're just gonna go ahead and hack this normally. Okay. Now once we're out of this room, you will notice that because we didn't come through this area normally, this is where we were all doing this out of bounds stuff. These guys weren't loaded in because they are, you know, the enemies in this area hadn't loaded. But unfortunately, this thing is now blocking our progress. However, the reason that we kept that extra upgrade until this point is so we can pop over and we can buy this upgrade in the corner, which, yes, the upgrade in the corner, which is cryptographic range upgrade. And now we can hack this box from all the way over here. Now if you do... I'm just going to take out these guys. You do not have to. Because we're now going to talk about the Rex Super Jump. So...
Los policías infiltrados me necesitan. Si los dejo en el hielo, morirán congelados.
The best way to do this area is to do what's called a Rex Super Jump, which is to, you know how you dive roll? You double press your jump button forward, or you know, in order to make that happen. With the Rex Super Jump, you're doing that same aim and shoot to interrupt the animation, but you're doing it mid-jump, mid-dive roll. So you press basically jump, aim, shoot, jump, but very quickly, like that. If you do it without jumping off of anything, Batman kind of does this like weird leap forward thing. But if you do it off of a ledge, he gets a bunch of height. And the trick is to get enough height to where you don't have to land on that, on this, what's it called, on this ice. Because if you do land on this ice, we haven't actually landed on the ice yet, and so Batman has to do his whole, this whole ice thing. And then you have to walk across this slowly. And this is, well, slow.
Es el sonido de un poli infiltrado al que le congelan los dedos con temperaturas bajo cero.
This is how you would do it if you aren't able to do the Rex Super Jump. I'm just going ahead and showing you, and then you would go across that way. However,
Los policías infiltrados me necesitan. Si los dejo en el hielo, morirán congelados.
If you go ahead and do this super jump and you get the maximum amount of height, it is no problem to be able to glide over. Rex super jumping, I would recommend, if you want to practice that, do it in the overworld on the top of a building or something, so that you don't have to, like, you know, restart every time you mess up. This is what it looks like if you skip that ice, you know, navigation stuff. You can also glide through this hallway if you've got decent gliding skills, but that's not that big of a deal. Just saves a little bit of time. There is if you're good at your rec interrupts to the point where you can consistently do them, going through doors, you can skip a tutorial on the other side of the store by opening the door, going through it, looking down, and walking through this area while looking down, and then jumping over this to start the Predator room. I'll show you what it looks like if you don't. Because if you're looking forward, essentially it'll show this guy looking at this gargoyle like this, which wastes about this much time. So Best way to do this Predator room. Grapple up here, grab these guys. You can grapple this guy. Usually he'll hit one of those hostages and fall over. You can also grapple this guy, and if you grapple this guy up the stairs like that, then he'll fall down. Meanwhile, try and grapple these guys down off of the stairs. Like that. Take them down. So I use a PS4 controller. Best way to do that for games that require an Xbox 360 controller is I use a program called DS4 Windows. Basically, I have it set up so that it's easy to set up so that you can just whenever you plug in your controller, it basically remaps all the buttons to what the Xbox 360 buttons are. For this part, go ahead and grapple boost off of this, and then bounce off here, and you will have enough height to totally avoid all of this water rafting that you would normally have to do. And we'll go straight to the penguin. We're going to go underneath these things, grab our jammer, and go ahead and take him down. If you're fast enough, you can skip that punch animation. Oh, it looks like Penguin sort of glitched out anyways. But that's not a big deal. So for the Solomon Grundy fight, you're going to start off by actually quickfire wreck attacking him, which heals him. That's actually a tactic, because healing him will prevent this first round of electricity from blasting out of these things. Otherwise, the electricity will come out and it will try and heal him, and then you have to avoid the electricity. Now, it is important to say that you can gel these pads while the electricity is coming out of them, which I'll be doing in the third wave, not too soon after this. So we'll go ahead and punch Mr. Grundy in the head. He gets knocked over. Just mash the punch button at him. Yeah, good work, Automato. That sounds great. But yeah, you do have to keep DS4 Windows running while you play. So we'll mash out of this. You know, just mash the button. For this first pad, a consistent way to get onto it is run backwards to the center of the game, run forwards, and then dive roll over that, and you dive roll into that as soon as it turns off. Now, the way I do this is you can see that I'm sort of running on the edge of those electrical things. I'll get these little guys away. Oops. So, the way I do it is I line up Batman's ears, the ears of his cowl. Actually, let's wait for him to heal. I line them up with that edge. Ah, damn it. He really messed that up. And that's what it's going to look like. So here, I'll do it over this one. You line up his ears with the, you know, so you're basically doing like a tangent line across the edge of the circle. And once you hit the circle, you lay down the gel. Or if you're not comfortable doing that, you can just wait like 2 seconds for it to stop electrifying and then just go over it normally. And then finally, for the penguin, just slide underneath all his missiles. They can't hit you. And then instead of beating him with the regular punch button, you want to do cape stuns on him with your stun button. It's slightly faster. I know. If you don't know what I mean, look up. You can look up like a tangent line, but that's the best way to explain how you're trying to run across that thing.
Oráculo, cambio de...
En la sangre de Ras Al Ghul. Está bien, Bruce. Supongo que tienes
Okay.
que ir a por él. Pero por favor, céntrate. No dejes que...
So now we are doing a pretty great series of sequence breaks. We're going to sequence break ourselves down into Wonder City, and then we're going to have to sequence break ourselves out once we beat Ra's al Ghul. So we'll skip this. Come up here, and we're going to do a zip here, using whatever method you prefer. You can do that method, you can also do the remote batarang catch. It doesn't matter. There are two ways that this can go. You either will get the high version or the low version. I'll see if I can manipulate myself into getting both versions to show you guys. That is neither version. That is the I messed up, the glitch version. Where am I? Okay, this is the low version. When you do it, Batman kind of falls down this way, and he lands on... Whoops, you don't want to do that, though. Otherwise, you get flown. But anyways, once you land down here, press circle to get out of that. You're going to want to jump over to this box. And once you're on here, this area will sort of load. And then what you do is you glide down here. And now you can run into the processing center. The processing center, when you're in the beginning of the game, works normally. And when you're at the end of the game, it works normally. But during this part of the game, since we're in sort of the middle of the game, nothing is loaded as it should. This wall is totally gone, which makes it very useful, or I should say very easy to get in and out of bounds. Let's see if I can manipulate myself to get a high version of that zip, to show you what that looks like.
Veo que ha pedido información sobre...
¿Puede oírme alguien? ¿Cambio?
Te oigo. Esto es un caos. El jefe se ha esfumado.
¿Qué? ¿Dónde se ha metido el pingüino?
Ni idea. Estaba soltando eso.
That was the low version again.
Veo que ha pedido información sobre la Liga de los Asesinos.
¿Puede oírme alguien? ¿Cambio?
Te oigo. Esto es un caos. El jefe se ha esfumado.
¿Qué? ¿Dónde se ha metido el pingüino?
Ni idea. Estaba soltando eso de voy a colgar a Batman en mi sala de trofeos. Y de repente nada. Pero...
This is probably the pickiest skip in terms of needing exactly 62 FPS in order for it to pull off correctly. Okay, I will go ahead and, because I don't want to be doing that for too long, I'll go ahead and, like, maybe edit a clip of me getting the high version, and put that in there and show you sort of what you need to do in order to get back in bounds from that. Oops. Hold on. This is how you do this normally. Avoid that chain. Destroy this thing from the top. For this room, you basically want to glide into this side and then just start yanking everybody off of the, what's it called? Yanking everybody off the ledge like this. Oh, this guy's here. Oh, he's the last guy. Cool. The reason you want to do everything over here is because if you're too close to the nurse at any point during that Predator room, Batman tells her to run and hide, and then it takes a long time for her to actually stand up like this. For this part, what you want to do here, also it is very important that while you're doing this sort of entire thing, up until you start the Ra's al Ghul like Wonder City trials, you do not checkpoint restart at all. So if you're playing on easy difficulty, you shouldn't die during these guys, but you don't want to checkpoint restart at all. You just want to go ahead and come to this corner and get both of your Batarangs into corner cover like that. And now we'll rescue this woman. Now there is one thing, we did not get the line launcher. We skipped, you know, the how, you know, Batman chases the ninjas, and then Robin appears, and then you get the line launcher. So we don't have that, and that's actually really, really useful for some stuff later on. You kind of need it to beat the game optimally. Now, there is sort of a weird workaround, and that's if you enter this room that I'm looking at, the game will give you the line launcher. Because I guess this is the first room that you're normally supposed to be in Wonder City, and the game's like, okay, you need to have a line launcher by this point. So, if you're good at your rec interrupts, you can rec interrupt yourself into the room, and then rec interrupt yourself back into this room, and now we have the line launcher. If you're not good at your rec interrupts, don't worry about it. You can come into this room. You will have to take out these guys, because they will sort of instantly see you. Also, at this point, go ahead and, whoops, buy our upgrade for 5x combo and free flow. So take out those guys. Oracle will call you and talk to you, and then we can go back. So now we have the line launcher. Now, depending on how you're feeling, you can learn the this Wonder City glide, which skips the ninjas, sorry, the robots. Skip scanning the robots in this next area. In fact, I would definitely recommend you you learn this next skip. The most consistent way to do it, once you get rec interrupts down, to rec interrupt this door, which will put Batman into first-person mode, but you don't actually want to get into the door. Instead, stay here, and go back into the door, and then come out of the door. And now Batman will be in first-person mode, or sorry, third-person mode, and the area will be unloaded. So we're going to grapple over here. We're going to grapple onto this gargoyle. If you're not sure which gargoyle it is, it's the one where, when Batman's on it, he faces the middle of the room. The door is sort of over there, overlapping with that grapple point. You can also, of course, open up the map and see that he's in this part of the room. We're going to do our rec animation like this. We're going to pull a Batarang, except I did lose this because I was showing you guys how to do this. So we need to go over this area. This way? No, here it is. And get these. No, you cannot, because when you're in first-person view, you can't use your gadgets. That's why you have to be in third-person view for this. So now we'll throw, and as soon as you throw, make sure you start gliding. There's a big wall to my right, so we're kind of want to go parallel to that. Once you get into this area, we can go ahead and clear it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to glide underneath this area using your dive bomb skills. And we have successfully made it past this area where you have to scan all of those ninja robots and stuff. come down here. Everything is unloaded. Do a wreck interrupt on this ladder. And then climb back up. And now this area is properly loaded. And we can do the Dead Parent skip. So the Dead Parents cutscene never happened, but that also means that those doors never opened. So do what I do here. Line launch yourself, and then climb up this area. Once you get about here, line launch onto this thing, glide to the right. Batman should climb this. You're trying to aim to those little... It's kind of hard to see at this angle, but those two little beams in front. Like that. And then you're going to glide through this little hole to land on this pipe, and then line launch through there. Batman all of a sudden remembers that the plot requires him to be poisoned. And now we can proceed with the trials. Alright, so the Ra's al Ghul boss fight is actually something I want to talk about. You want to be good at, what's it called? At doing these animation cancels real quick. Because we're going to be using them really quick. First off, you can actually smoke these guys, and that'll stop a couple of them from attacking you. Oops. Last one. So once you do this guy, go ahead and do the battering, because once you are able to do it, you can actually stop that shockwave from pushing you back. Also, one thing you can do is with that same animation cancel, you can overlap the wreck animation, the wreck shooting animation, with the quickfire wreck animation, which sounds kind of stupid, but it essentially lets you shoot 2 shots at once, which is really good for this part. You're basically doing aim, fire, and then quickfire. And I'll do it sort of quick next time so that you can see how useful it is in trying to hit those parts when those what do you call those guys? When they're the guys that are protecting Ra's al Ghul, when they're spinning really fast, that double shot really helps. Yes, I keep left trigger held down because left trigger and circle or B button is the quickfire button on controller. On keyboard and mouse doesn't really matter.
Acepta tu destino. Acepta nuestro destino.
Sabes que no puedo hacer eso, Talia.
Entonces, amado mío, tendrás que morir.
So this part is why we bind counter to the mouse wheel, so you can do this. That's really it. But it's a nice time save chunk. So this is why you want quickfire, or sorry, free flow focus, because you can basically punch everybody before they can even hit you. So do one of these. And now we'll go ahead and do this double shot. Whoops, didn't even do it correctly. Now, this is really important. When you hit that last shot and he's going up, you need to get this really quickly. Because what we're going to do is we're going to mash triangle at this, and then so once we're done mashing triangle, we're going to mash, or Y button to counter, we're going to mash the punch button. And then at that point, Batman's going to go into the animation where he punches Ra's al Ghul into the floor. However, what we need to do is we need to trigger the rec animation interrupt storage that we just achieved, but you need to do it on keyboard and mouse. So, by default, the aim button on keyboard and mouse is right mouse button, and by default, the number 4 is the quickfire, or not quickfire, it's just the regular select rec gadget. So by default, you do right mouse button and press the 4 button. I have custom keybinds, so I don't press those buttons, but it doesn't really matter. So we're gonna punch. And right now, I've hit aim and 4. And now what you want to do is stun this guy so that he comes up. The camera's going to do crazy stuff, and then you throw batarangs at him. And that skips that entire cutscene where Batman pulls out the remote batarang, reverse batarang. You have to throw it. They talk. You know, it's really bad. So now what we're going to do, and actually I'm going to make a backup save here. Now, if you did everything correctly, we actually have storage still on our remote batarang, because we never actually pulled out our remote batarang, assuming you didn't die up to this point. Now, there is a backup in case you did die, but that's okay. We'll talk about that in a second. Basically, jam yourself into the corner here. This is not specific at all. And then throw a batarang. You will end up in this hallway, which is the hallway past all this stuff. Go ahead and line launch your way through. Whoops. Line launch your way through and go through this door. After you go through this door, checkpoint restart. Now, I'm going to do a restart real quick here to show you the backup method in case you did die during the rage fight, or you died during the trials, or you can't do this skip. Oh, we don't have our, you know, our thing there anymore. There is a backup, and it is to get up here, just like if we were doing our the dead parent skip. Do this stuff again. Once we get up here, though, we're going to run this direction and slide. Whoops. I want to go this way. And we need to know where the edge of this is, which is about right here. So once you get about right here, climb up, and we're going to need to do a wreck jump to get lots of height to get on top of this, which is, what's it called? That's going to be the top of that next hallway. Like that. Alright. And then all you have to do is kind of glide towards these guys. And we can walk forward. We will fall down into the hallway, and we can continue like normal. So you can definitely do the Rex Super Jump on 30 FPS on console. And now we can go ahead and restart and reload this. I talked about rep jumps earlier in the tutorial. Check the VOD on YouTube or on Twitch later on for the details. So we sequence braked, I don't know, sequence broke our way in here through this area. We're gonna go out this way as well. Yes, the console route is quite different because you pretty much need to do alternate zips for everything. Unfortunately, none of the console players want to actually find any of those zips, and so they just do slow strats. Okay, so go ahead and run this way. There are some lights there. If you see those guys, you are doing good. We're going to do a couple dive bombs, and you can grapple boost off of this little thing to the right. And then grapple boost off this, and then the aerial will load around you, and you can go ahead and take these guys out, who are protecting Quincy Sharp.
No, por favor.
Bruce, detecto de eso nada. Tienes que volver al cuartel.
So now we're gonna go to the Vicki Vale, or sorry, Vicki Vale, Mr. Freeze fight. Fastest way to do that is just fly over.
conoces, Batman. Creí que éramos amigos, que trabajábamos juntos y todo eso. Desde mi lecho, aferrándome desesperadamente a lo poco que me queda de vida, me parece que me has traicionado y te has puesto a trabajar con esa nevera andante. Pues yo también sé jugar a eso. Intenta volver con ese muñeco de nieve traidor en el
So, to consistently get these guys away from this, this is not required, but you can use a smoke pellet here, and that pushes them away. Whoops. And then, whoops. So that you can glide underneath that, or slide underneath that. You're not gliding. And now we're going to start the Mr. Freeze fight. Mr. Freeze, you'll want to roll through there. Skips a little bit of walking. There is a set order that you want to do this, so run up here, glide at him like this.
Bruce, recuerda lo que pasó en la isla. No intentes vencerle en un combate demasiado fuerte. Bien, ya están los datos. Te los estoy enviando.
Okay. So you glide, do the line launch. Then you're going to want to run this way, because Mr. Freeze will follow your footsteps. And once he gets up and starts walking, get this magnet so that he will be trapped by the magnet. While he's getting trapped by the magnet, throw a Batarang and break that Nora statue. Sometimes, upon coming off the magnet, he will break it himself, and if Mr. Freeze breaks the statues, then he soft locks himself. It's a very weird thing that happens. I come here and hide behind this thing, and as soon as you see on the right side, neutralizando, that means that he's turned around to spray the magnet, and then you can, well, you can hop down and go ahead and silent takedown. You can also do a drop attack from there, and for some reason, I guess I was just not in the right spot or something. Doesn't really matter though, silent takedown is just fine. Okay, so we have arrived at the Vicki Vale skip. So if you move forward in this little thing, you can see this helicopter comes down and you have to watch a cutscene. That's lame. So there are two ways that you can get around this. If you have, this whole time, if you've been doing the harder version of the zips, where you don't catch any remote Batarangs, that means that when you catch a remote Batarang here, you're catching it for the first time. And that, will complete a, Riddler challenge, like that, and it'll create a checkpoint where you can, checkpoint restart. Now, that checkpoint restart will put you here because the game picks a spawn location out of a predetermined set of spawn locations. So we've come back here. However, if you, for example, let's say you've been catching remote Batarangs this whole time willy-nilly, that's fine. However, there's a couple things that you'll have to do a little bit differently. First of all, we'll need to, instead of catching a remote Batarang to trigger that save, we need to hit some balloons next to the GCPD. If you try and hit balloons with your remote Batarang, you can see that it kind of, flies away and doesn't let you control it after you come out of this, after you come out of this area, right? So, what you need to do here, and this is a little bit tricky, I'm going to do it from a checkpoint restart just to get a consistent position for this. You're going to want to walk forward for about half a second, and then throw the remote control Batarang as the helicopter comes down and the cutscene begins. Like, that wasn't enough. There we go. So now we can control that remote Batarang all around the world, and you can pop one of these balloons, doesn't really matter which one, and it will create that checkpoint restart.
Esa zorra es mía.
Parece que los francotiradores que cubrían mi posición desde el sureste se han ido. La azotea del edificio Kitson está en silencio. O se han ido todos, o alguien los ha eliminado. Ha cesado el fuego de las torres Dini.
Ya no veo a los francotiradores en la azotea del edificio de apartamentos. Si alguien puede oír esta emisión, que envíe...
Aquí estarás a salvo.
Bueno, Gotham.
Alright, so we are now going to do a version of the skip called Stacy Skip, which skips saving Dr. Stacy Baker down in the, what's it called? In the steel mill. This is maybe the hardest skip in the game, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be gliding, doing some very specific jumping and gliding in order to, basically load a level around us. But we don't have a lot of, actually before we explain, before I do this, let me finish talking. So we're loading a level around us, doing some more blind gliding. It's very difficult. To start off, we'll go ahead and do a dive bomb down into this area. If you aim at this little level, same as back in the Bowery, this will actually just let you climb out of bounds, climb onto this thing, and then we can glide into this little area. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for this little checkpoint restart to happen, and then we're going to come through here, and we're going to checkpoint restart here so that we are able to actually go through the next door. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a Rex super jump here. Be very careful though, because the edge of this, if you can kind of see, the edge of this ledge is not the edge of the texture. So you need to be about right here to do the Rex super jump. But once you get that super jump, you're going to go ahead and glide up here. There is an alternate version to get up here as well. To if you're not very good at Rex super jumping, I will link that in the description. We're going to line launch over here onto this floating door thing. And now this part is pretty precise, and I hope I don't mess it up. So we're going to do one dive bomb here, do another dive bomb here. I'm looking on the left side of the screen. There's this sort of ledge thing. As this disappears off the side of the screen, assuming you're playing at a 16:9 resolution aspect ratio, I'm going to wait about a second for that to disappear, and then I'm going to sort of slowly turn Batman to turn this way. And I overshot it. So we went out of bounds. So let's try this one more time. Like I said, not an easy skip. Same thing. Nice.
Sí, hablé por teléfono con el profesor Strange ayer y me contó qué es. ¿En serio? ¿Y qué es? ¿Eres tan estúpido como parece?
I've learned the new version of Sigil Skip. I'm not teaching it because I think it's harder to do like a different kind of a door interrupt. There we go. So we have landed. Basically, if you don't know this area, there's a guy that's going to be hanging on a ledge right there. If we look across, there's basically a big gap here that we can line launch across to get to this door. You want to aim where I was aiming with that smoke pellet so that it has that really big arc. And then we're going to come through this door. Now, normally you would go through this door, checkpoint restart, and then continue. But instead, I'm going to interrupt this so I can actually show you what's going on here. We landed here, basically. This is where we landed in the invisible world. And what I did is I was showing you this is where the guy would be hanging. Excuse me. This is where the guy would be hanging. And this is where we have that really big smoke bomb arc. So we aim here, and we want to line launch across this. And you don't want to fall into that water, because the water event or trigger is not actually there. So when you fall down, you're not actually going to land in the water. You are just going to get stuck down here, and there's no way to actually get out.
De lo que me dijo él. Tenías que haberlo visto a la cara. Yo cubro la puerta. Tengo este por aquí. Se ha ido. ¿Eh? ¿Quién está gritando? Que alguien vaya a ver. ¿Eh?
Also, question, do you have to do, for the new Stacy Skip... Ah, man, come on. Do you have to do the backclaw interrupt for the door? Because I was doing it with the regular rec gun, and it seemed to be working, though I didn't try it a lot. I'm not going to teach them the glide here. It's not worth it. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that, like, you could do it with the right. Okay, so for this room, you're gonna come through this door, come to the right, and basically you want to throw a smoke bomb underneath these snipers, and then grapple up, and throw it in such a way that you can actually just run past them, and get to this door before they recover, and then you don't have to fight them, or do any sort of waiting. I was able to do a Gargoyle Wreck Storage if I... just with my other Batarang.
Por favor, para! No aguanto más. Tú ganas, me has vencido. Espera. ¿He dicho a mí? Decía a mí y a estos tíos.
So for these guys, best thing to do for this fight is to sort of start off taking these guys down. Keep your combo going if you can. Wait for Mr. Hammer to come down. Should come down. Mr. Hammer takes 50 hits. Ah, man. That's gonna mess up my... Yeah, that's too off. It's gonna mess up my combos. You can time it so that your last hit is with the Bat Swarm, and that skips an animation. Not a big deal, though. I'm gonna finish taking all these guys out. For this Titan, go ahead and you can, instead of doing a cape stun, you can do a quickfire explosive gel, take out the Titan, and then Joker. Alright, so now we are going to be doing a couple more sequence breaks, skipping Protocol 10 and Wonder City, or sorry, the elevator tower climb. So,
Batman no puede dejar morir a toda esa gente.
Mi rastreador no se...
we're gonna first glide over here. Whoops. We're gonna use this this same hole that we did when we were coming into the steel mill to climb out of bounds. But instead we're going to glide in this direction. We're going to want to come down, and then I do a dive bomb through this little black rectangle here, and that ensures that the subway loads properly. So now we're going basically back down to Wonder City, but we're going the opposite direction, so we don't have to do the, what's it called? The processing center. So you can come in and grapple back in bounds from there. Now when you come through this door, Batman, it basically says, we don't have time to do this, or some translation of that, because the game actually thinks you're going in the wrong direction right now. Alright, so we're going to be skipping this Predator room as well. Glide over in this direction, land on one of these railings, grab your remote Batarang, and then we're going to get into this corner cover, and we're going to do regular Batarang. We're going to use this same gargoyle that we were using back in Wonder City the last time. Of course, you know, now we actually get to see what it looks like because everything's loaded. We're going to do a Batarang Zip, so like before, zip and then immediately start gliding once the zip completes. You basically want to land here. There's also, I think somewhere else you can land over there in that little crevasse there. It doesn't really matter. This is just as fine. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do maybe the oldest glitch ever discovered in this game, is the freeze hover glitch. So we're going to hold down aim. First we'll do our handy dandy wreck interrupt with our explosive gel, and then holding down aim we switch to remote Batarang, and now the game thinks that we're back on that railing. This is really useful because when you're on a railing but actually at the edge of a railing, or you're actually disconnected from a railing, if you throw a freeze grenade, the game will actually cause you to gain height. So if we consistently start throwing freeze grenades, I'm mashing the controller button, you can gain a bunch of height. Now at this point, I would recommend that if you're playing on PC, which this is the guide for PC, so you should be, that you have a button bound on your keyboard, because it's way more consistent and effective to mash with your keyboard mouse than with a controller. Less chance of screwing up. I have spacebar bound to freeze grenade hover. So you're basically going to get this high and then glide over here. We're going to do this kind of stand at the edge of this elevator shaft here. We're going to do it you know, a couple more times, and then about the 6th time or 7th time it's going to load. You want to be holding right so that you pop out of the elevator shaft. And now we are on top of the Wonder Tower, the base of Wonder Tower, while the top of the tower is loaded. Now, this part is really important. You need to do this. I do it a very consistent way, and I managed to get this done. You will lose a lot of time if you don't do this properly. So I line this up. You can line this up if you hold the line launcher. I do this right basically as you can see when you're able to line launch, or if you just look, it's basically like right here is where you're looking, right about here. We're gonna do that same exact freeze hover. Make sure you are looking pretty much straight ahead, right through those gates out of Wonder City. And we're going to be freeze hovering. Also, you'll want to keep your camera as level as possible, because I start to turn around when those freeze grenades start to hit the invisible surface of the level above, which will happen soon. So you can see they're starting to hit that. I spin around and I look to the this left corner of this thing here. I wait about 6 grenades after that after that starts happening, and then what I do, this is really important, I grapple to the top of this sort of elevator thing. I hold down the run button so Batman will sort of roll and jump, and he'll go just low enough to where the elevator doors will trigger and open, but then he'll also climb back up to the top. So it looks like this. Now, that's perfect. The guys have started shooting. We hear the music. The electricity happened. Why wait 6? Because that's just a really consistent number that usually makes this load. If you've done that correctly, you can go ahead and fall down this direction. You will water warp to the other side of the Wonder Tower. If you look up, the game will probably stutter for a second because it's loading the top of the tower. If you don't see these gargoyles here, those gargoyles, then the tower has not loaded in, and you did something not as precisely as I mentioned. So, unfortunately, at this point, if you checkpoint restart, you have to do that entire out of bounds from the bottom of the tower again, which is why this is not fun to redo. You can do a little bit of a glide here to skip this little railing, as long as you stay close to the railing right here, just so you get that missile launch detected thing. You need to do that. And then we're going to sort of boost up here. We're going to do a dive bomb around, and then we can grapple up to the top of the tower. Now, we didn't do this the intended way. The top of the tower normally loads properly when you go through the maintenance hatch. So if we look in a detective mode, these guys disappear, and if we stand in front of them, they can't see me because their AI packages are somehow not loaded in properly. So I found that the most effective way to do this is to KO pound these 3. You can yank these 2. Fortunately, this guy did not get yanked. Try one more time. And then this final guy will come down to investigate the first guy that you yanked down, and you can take him down. You have to keep count. There are 6 guys up here because you won't be able to look in detective mode and see where they all are, so you have to actually use your actual eyes to do it. And now we can trigger good old Hugo Strange. 58 grenades. Yeah, so yeah, some people count from the bottom. I think Bubbles also counts from the bottom as well. I usually lose count when I'm doing it, so I just count 6 once I start seeing that grapple point.
¿Estás bien?
Hola, Batman. Sé que puedes oírme. No te pillo en mal momento, ¿verdad? Me preocupaba que te hubieses olvidado del pobre de mí. Fíjate en tu novia. Como puedes ver, corre el peligro de acabar con esa cabecita tan bonita estampada contra esta cámara.
Ignórale, mi amor. Déjale morir.
Ah, qué romántico. Lo malo es que me siento mejor que nunca. Y los dos sabemos que no puedes ignorarme. ¿Verdad?
I'll probably make this a separate video, how to change this, because you have to download a bunch of programs and also be knowledgeable about like how video encoding works.
Pero tienes que darte prisa. Si tardas demasiado, la protagonista podría parecer muerta en su camerino.
Alrighty. So for this final sniper's part, we are going to buy one last upgrade over here in oh, it is under here. It's this one. It's called Batclaw Disarm. It looks like because I was doing some reloading from save files, looks like we have already purchased that upgrade, so that's good. Now we are going to go ahead and glide over. The reason that we get Batclaw Disarm for this part is because when you backclaw the sniper rifles off of the buildings, the game is very kind to the snipers, and or to you, I should say, and considers the snipers taken down. So if we yank this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, all their guns fall off the roofs of the buildings like that, and they're not able to shoot you anymore, and the game considers them knocked out. Come on. That's really irritating that that didn't... There we go.
¿Qué te pasa, Batman? ¿Eres demasiado gallina para enfrentarte a mí? Pues deberías.
¿Dónde estás, Batman? Tengo tu entrada para el estreno en el bolsillo. Está justo aquí.
Now we can grapple this one, take down this guy, and that should be all the snipers except for these two. But you can just fall down and take them out. Okay, so for the final Clayface fight, this is pretty standard stuff. You're going to want to immediately start out by rolling away from him in the direction of this thing. Whoops. And you're going to want to place explosive gel as close as possible to the thing. Now, one of two things will happen here. He's doing his jump animation, which means that he's going to jump on top of me, and I'm going to roll out of the way and detonate the gel, and the explosives will detonate and damage him. He can also start with his rolling attack, which means he'll roll and hit the explosives himself, and then I can detonate explosive gel. If he does his roll attack first, basically he'll hit those explosives, and I'll just go put down gel over at this bomb. Since he's starting with his jump attack, we'll go ahead and do it like this. And then, now I'm just going to wait for him to do the roll attack at me, which will go ahead and hit this bomb. Also, something worth noting, little tip, is that whenever he does his punch attack, it is actually faster to wait, I'm also going to put one of these here. It's faster to get punched by his punch attack rather than to wait it out.
Deberías estar jugando. ¿Qué diablos estás haciendo, Batman?
So because he started with his jump attack last round, he'll start with his jump attack this round. If he starts with his roll attack last round, then he starts with his roll attack this round. It's consistent. Alright.
Tendríais que estar matando a Batman. ¿Os acordáis? Vas a hacer que llegue tarde a mi spa. Además, ya no tienes que salvar a ninguna chica, ¿verdad? Uy, lo siento. Muy pronto, ¿un cambio de paisaje te ayudaría a olvidar el dolor?
So for this final phase, there is a way to do a 3-cycle final phase instead of the default 4-cycle. It's very difficult, so I'm not really going to show it how. I'm also not the best at it anyways. But tips for this part is just start off by slicing all the guys that you need to, but then you don't want to start slicing again until that little orange health bar comes back. So I'm just kind of waiting here. Now it's back, and we can start slicing. It comes back basically right when Clayface disappears back into his puddle. Wait. And start slicing. When you get up to 12 combo hits, because we have free flow actually slows down the entire game world. We don't want that, so I go ahead and cancel my combo deliberately whenever I get to 12, just by doing a counter into the air. Make sure, of course, you don't die. And then finally, run forward, and as you jump into his mouth, stop your timer. You're right, Chicken, you can also just not buy free flow focus, but I find that it helps enough in the Racial Gold fight to where it's worth it if you have that many upgrades, I should say. Congratulations, we have beaten Arkham City. Feel free to watch the final cutscene and the credits if you'd like. I'm not going to do so. I'm going to practice something else. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching. Hopefully, everything was explained well enough. If you still have any questions about anything else, feel free to ask in the comments. I will do my best to answer those. I can't promise that I will read them as often as I would like, but I'll also have some helpful links in the description for other resources and things that you will be able to click on, maybe alternate routes for things, or maybe just timestamps for the video to help you navigate. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a good luck learning the game.